We're going to start a brand new read aloud book today, and it's by one of my favorite authors. Um, it's an older book, so it's actually normally I use a Kindle book to read to you guys, and I had to go find this one somewhere else because there's not even a Kindle version of this book. But it's by Cynthia Rylant. You may have read her picture books as a kid, The Old Woman Who Named Things, or let's see, yep, When I Was Young in the Mountains. My favorite book is a picture book called The Dreamer. I love that book. But this book is so interesting and it's so different than any other book I've ever read. Um, and it does something a little different. We talked a lot about cliffhangers when we were reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. This book doesn't have cliffhangers, but there's something about the last line in every chapter that tells you about the chapter that's coming. So it's almost more like a preview at the end of each chapter. It's interesting. So this is called the Van Gogh Cafe. Let's see if I can get this to work. Here we go. So you know Van Gogh is an artist, was an artist. Here we go. I hope that you can read this well enough. The Van Gogh Cafe sits on Main Street in Flowers, Kansas, and the building it is in was once a theater, which may be the reason for its magic. Anyone who has ever seen anything happen on a stage, anything, knows that a theater is so full of magic that after years and years of opening nights, there must be magic enough to last forever in its walls. The Van Gogh Cafe is lucky it hasn't found itself in a building where people perhaps once had their broken arms fixed or their teeth pulled out. Those are not the sorts of walls that harbor magic, but theater walls do. Magic is a powerful word and often misused. Some say magic comes from heaven, and others say it comes from hell, but anyone who has ever visited the Van Gogh Cafe knows that magic comes from a building that was once a theater, from a sign above a cash register that reads, "Bless all dogs," from a smiling porcelain hen on top of a pie carousel, from purple hydrangeas painted all over a lady's bathroom, from a small brown phonograph that plays "You'd Be So Nice to Come Home To." Magic is in the Van Gogh Cafe in Flowers, Kansas, and sometimes the magic wakes itself up, and people and animals and things notice it. They notice it and are affected by it, and pretty soon word spreads that there is a cafe, the Van Gogh Cafe, that is wonderful, like a dream, like a mystery, like a painting, and you ought to go there, they will say, for you will never forget it. You will want to stay if you can. Some have for a while, like the possum. Should we stop there? Before we move on, let me assure you that Miss Gilbert is not using curse words at you. Let's analyze how the word hell was used. It says some magic comes from heaven, that's a place, and others say it comes from hell, that's a place. Please do not go home and tell your parents that I'm cursing at you. Thank you. We'll go ahead and read the next chapter. The possum. Kansas is not what one would call picturesque. It is flat. So flat it could make some people a little crazy, people who need a hill now and then to keep their balance. But in Kansas, at least things get noticed. The flatness makes everything count, and not one thing slips by. That is why, if a possum was going to choose to hang upside down somewhere, Kansas would be a good choice. People would notice. And if the possum chose to hang outside the window of the Van Gogh Cafe in Flowers, well then, everyone would start talking about magic, and that would be good for the possum too. The Van Gogh Cafe is owned by a young man named Mark and his daughter Clara. Clara is one reason for all of the magic in the cafe. She is 10 and believes anything might happen. Mark bought the cafe 7 years ago, and he's the one who painted purple hydrangeas all over the ladies' bathroom and put the sign above the cash register. But the phonograph and the hen were already there when he arrived. Clara's mother doesn't like Kansas, and she lives in New York City, where Clara visits her each June. but Clara preferred Kansas the moment she laid eyes on it. Kansas is like a tall person relaxing, she says. It seems right for her. Mark and Clara open up the cafe at 6 every morning, except Sundays, when they sleep in till 10. Clara takes breakfast orders from Mark, who is the cook, for half an hour on school mornings. Then she goes to their apartment across the street to get ready for school. Clara likes taking orders because everyone is sleepy and sweet, and all they want in the world is a cup of coffee, please. Clara thinks morning is the kindest time of day. Most of the people who come to the Van Gogh Cafe are Flowers people, and they know each other. Hi, Ray. Hello, Roy. But sometimes someone is new, for Flowers sits near I-70, which people take when they are escaping from an old life in the East to a new life in the West, or the other way around. Clara has met many people between 6 and 6:30 on their way to something new. But she has not met a possum until today. Today is Saturday, and she is working a couple extra hours for her father, and it is 8 o'clock in the morning when suddenly a possum is hanging upside down in the tree outside the cafe window, right on Main Street. A minute ago it wasn't there, and now it is. Clara sees it first. Look, there's a possum. Coffee cups go down, heads turn, and outside a little gray possum enjoys being noticed. It scratches its nose and blinks its eyes and stares back at all the faces. No one sitting down can say hello to a possum, so everyone in the cafe gets up and stands in front of the window. Now this is the magic of the Van Gogh Cafe. Not one person says, "Amazing! A possum upside down on Main Street." No, everyone is not all that surprised. They, like Clara, have come to believe anything might happen, because they have been having breakfast at the Van Gogh Cafe all their lives. What they do say is, "Hi." Many of them wave. Ray asks Roy what possums eat, and with their usual curiosity about every new person in Flowers, they all say, "Wonder where he's from." Well, it's hard to know a possum story before he does anything magical, but after he does, there's a story and more to tell. One of the first stories is that the possum starts coming back to the Van Gogh Cafe every day. 8 in the morning, he's up in the tree. But that's a small story. The possum begins to attract people, and this is the bigger story because he attracts people who haven't been getting along. Best friends who had a fight the day before, today they're standing on the sidewalk next to the possum. The possum's hanging upside down and blinking, and the two friends are talking, and suddenly they've got their arms around each other and are coming into the cafe for some pie. A young husband and wife, the day before they're yelling on the front yard, the next day they're kissing beside the possum. Two neighbors, the day before they're arguing about loud music, and the next day the possum is watching them shake hands. The story becomes even bigger when people start bringing food out of the Van Gogh Cafe. Food for the possum. Half an English muffin here, 2 pieces of oven-fried potatoes there, a cup of milk. They can't help themselves. They want to give it some food. The possum isn't hungry, but a stray dog from the other end of town is, and he starts stopping by for breakfast. So does a thin cat and 2 baby kittens, and a shy small mouse, several sparrows, even a deer. And this goes on for a while until the biggest story happens, a story that will enter quietly into the walls of the cafe and become part of its magic. For a man whose wife has died drives through Flowers, Kansas one morning on his way to something new. He is sad. He really isn't sure where he's going. But passing the Van Gogh Cafe, he sees the possum. He sees the possum and he sees all the hungry animals standing beneath it, eating the scraps of muffins and potatoes. And the man sees something else there, something no one has seen until now. And because of what he sees, he turns his car around and drives back where he belongs, back to his farm, which he turns into a home for stray animals, animals who come to him and take away his loneliness. Since that day, the possum at the Van Gogh Cafe has disappeared. One minute it was there, the next minute it wasn't. But the customers still bring food out of the cafe every morning, leaving scraps beneath the tree in case anyone hungry happens by. There's always a new stray dog, a new thin cat, some sparrows. Clara's not surprised the possum has gone away. Things are always changing at the Van Gogh Cafe, and something new is sure to happen soon. Perhaps when lightning strikes.